Hillary, and since Smriti is not here, we are playing a video of her introing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Smriti A, and this year I have the pleasure of mentoring Hillary Asensio Ferrofino, an eighth grader from Fontana, California. Hillary was a joy to work with, and she is very bright and ambitious. Hillary had no prior experience with coding before our sessions, but she learned how to code in Python 3 from the Code Academy course. Using her knowledge, she developed an app called Book Catalog, which recommends the user a book after answering a series of questions. Hillary loves to read, and that was her inspiration for her project. Without further ado, here is Hillary Asensio Ferrofino.
That was my mentor, Smriti. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. And like she said, my name is Hillary Asensio, and I'm an eighth grader in Fontana, California. Next slide. As you saw before, my mentor is Smriti A. She works as a commercial sales manager at Siemens Energy, and she lives in Houston, Texas. Some of her hobbies is exercising and watching TV. Another one of her hobbies is coding, which is how she can help me with my program. Next slide. I started this project because I've always wanted to learn to code, and I started this program specifically because I like to read, but when I finish a book, I tend to not know what book to read next. So I decided to try to tackle that issue in my program. Next slide. My project's name is Book Catalog, and it can either ask you a series of questions or randomize for a random book. Either way, by the end of it, it will show you a book recommended with some information on the book, as you can see on screen. Next slide. On my experience in both learning to code and coding my project, some of the highlights was both learning functions and applying them in my code. I liked learning functions because it makes coding much more efficient. Another highlight was meeting my mentor, Smriti, and of course, learning Python. Since, like I said before, I've always wanted to learn to code. I chose Python specifically because Python can be used for a variety of things, including future projects. Next slide. This is my book catalog demo. In this demo, I'll be showing you 3 different ways you can get a book recommended from my program. This isn't a tour, but rather just a way to show some possible ways you can use the program. The first way to get a book recommended is by asking to take a quiz and then selecting A, which will give you 1 book instead of a list of books. It will then ask you 6 questions. In the quiz, after you've finished the quiz, it will show you the 1 recommended book based on the answers to the questions. It will then give you the title, the author, a photo, a rating, and the synopsis. Once you've finished answering the questions, it will show you a countdown, as you'll be able to see on screen shortly. And then you'll be able to see the things that I just mentioned previously. And as you can see, here it is. We got The Mere Visitors by Christelle Davos with the rating, the photo, and the synopsis, like I said before. Another way you can get a book recommended from this program is by instead selecting B, which will give you a list of books instead of 1 book. And it will then ask you 6 questions as long as there are 5 or more books that meet the criteria. If not, it'll skip you to the end no matter how many questions you've answered. And it will then show you your list of recommended books after the countdown. As you can see on screen, here they are. We got 4 books recommended. But let's say that you don't have of a particular type of book in mind, or you're new to reading and you don't have anything in mind. You can ask to randomize instead of take a quiz. And as implied in the name, it will give you a random book. Once you've selected it, it will then give you, like the first, like option A to the quiz, it will give you the name of the book, the author, a photo of the book cover, the rating, and a synopsis. Once you've clicked random, it will give you the countdown as you can see on screen, and then show you a book. Book we got was Wayfarers by Becky Chambers. And once you're done, once you've gotten your recommended book, you can just type in no to both of the looping options, and it will then say goodbye and stop the program. Next slide, please. You skipped a slide. Now that you've seen my book catalog demo, some of the challenges that I had in coding a project was with the genre questions, since I had trouble printing out all possible genres in intervals of 5. Ultimately, I did manage to print them out with the use of while statements and if statements. On the topic of while statements, a while statement is a loop that will continue looping as long as certain criteria is met. I had trouble with while statements as I had issues with creating the right criterias that I needed for my code. And some lessons that I learned while coding my book catalog project was attention to detail, since I quickly realized that if you forget to add a colon or a parenthesis, it will show you an error and derail your code. Something else that I learned was patience, because it takes a lot of time to create a good code. In the same vein as that, I learned pacing because I learned pacing because I found myself of rushing through some aspects of my code and having to go back in and fix them and spending more time on them than I should have. Next slide. Thank you for listening. Here's my GitHub link, and are there any questions?
Fantastic. I'm really excited to try out your recommendations and see what it says for me. Great presentation skills too. And we'll open it up for questions. We have a question from Luana.
First of all, congratulations, Hillary. This sounds really cool, and I think it's really useful as well. I love that like your motivation was based on personal experience. That's also really cool. I have 2 questions. The first one is, you said you chose Python because it can be used like for general purposes. So I'm curious what other types of things you want to try. And my second question is, how do you intend to make this like public for other people to use, and if so, how? Like, should people, I see that you're using a Colab notebook, should people open the notebook and run it on their own, or do you intend to like make something else?
So to answer the first question, I am planning on working on other things over the summer. Since I won't be in school, I plan on trying something out with AI. And for the second question, I plan to try making it a website instead of Google Colab, like a forum of sorts.
That sounds great. Good luck with your next steps.
Awesome. We've got some great jobs going on in the chat here. What other questions do we have for Hillary?
Congratulations, Hillary. I have a quick question. So the books, you made a database of books that you picked yourself, and then you divided them into genres. How did you kickstart the process?
So I first started, in the very beginning, I just started with books that I've read personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I sorted them out and adding all the information like the publication date. And then once I was once I ran out of books that I had already read, I looked to forums to see books that people were recommending online and then sorted those out.
Good. Great. A useful feature would be if the program recommended a book to me and I read it, then if I could provide feedback on if that was good for me or not, that's another feature you can think of for your program. But great job.
Yes, great job. And we have a question in the chat from Victoria. She said, I like your project. And are you planning on adding any other books?
Not right now. I'm not planning to add any other books. I mean, there's already 150 in there, so I'd say that's a good amount for right now.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, maybe after you read books, you'll love to add the ones that were your favorites. And Luana added in here that if you want to go into AI, you could even incorporate an AI-based recommendation to your app too. So that would be really cool. Wonderful. Well, I feel like we could all brainstorm on this. So if you ever need a board of directors here, we have lots of book lovers for you.
Yeah, thank you.